This is a different situation, and we have these different parts here. This one, I set the material to neon, which made it glowing, and as a builder, that's something that you're going to want to use quite often if you're not aware of it. Okay, and so I put these parts together. This part is unioned with this part. Okay, so if I play the game, then these two are going to be stuck together. This one here is not unioned with anything. So when I run the game, they're not going to, it's not going to be stuck to anything. So I go ahead and test, I play. I'll show you that that's the case because this part's going to fall to the ground and that cylinder should fall to the side. So you see that? The cylinder's fallen to the side. But if you're trying to create some kind of a weapon or you're trying to create a sword or something like that, then very often you're going to be stuck in this kind of a situation, right? Where you want this cylinder to be here, but you don't want this top edge to be here, and neither do you want this side edge to be there, right? So you might be asking yourself, well, man, can I cut it off so I can make my shape look a little bit better? And yes, you can. Okay. And so I'm going to show you how to do that using the Negate tool here. Okay. And so the way that this works is you're going to create a part. Let's say if we want to cut this top part off, I'm going to create a block. And instead of creating a new block, I'm just going to take this guy here. I'm going to turn Can Collide off. Okay. And then I'm going to press Command D to duplicate the part. Ooh, wrong part. So I'm going to click on this guy. I'm going to turn Can Collide off. I'm going to Command D or Control D. Okay, and so this guy here is welded to the other part, so that's not something that I want. But I guess it doesn't matter too much. So maybe I could say create. So I guess it doesn't matter because this is what I'm going to use to cut off that little piece there. So the first thing I want to do, probably, you don't have to, but for me it makes a little bit more sense, is to change the shape of the part, make it a little bit smaller. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to use this part to cut off that little top part of the cylinder. And the way you do that is you make this block like antimatter, basically. That's the way I like to think about it, right? So I click on him, I say negate, and then bam, he turns into antimatter. Okay. So what do I mean by antimatter? Well, if you have this block touch that little piece that's sticking out there, and then you union the two parts together, then it's going to remove that top part. Okay, so maybe it sounds a little bit confusing, but let me show you and it'll become a little bit more clear, right? So what I have is I have all these three parts, right? And I have my negative part right here. So I'm going to go here and turn Can Collide off. I am going to go to move, and I'm going to make sure that this antimatter part, the negated part, touches all of that part of the cylinder, this guy, that I want to remove. Okay, so I don't want to remove any of the box, but I do want to remove the cylinder, so you got to be kind of careful with this. And whoa, mama. Okay, that looks like a good angle to do this. Okay, so there we go. So now the antimatter part is covering the part of the cylinder that I want to remove. Okay, great. Now we're good to go. So now I'm going to hold down, I'm going to click on my negative part, and then I'm going to press Command, and I'm going to click on my cylinder part, the one that I want to remove. So right there. So I have the negative part. If you look on the right side in the Explorer, I have the negative part highlighted, and I have the cylinder part highlighted, right? So what you're going to do next is you're going to union. And so we're going to merge the negative part and the cylinder part. And what's going to happen is it's going to remove all of the cylinder part that is inside of the negative part. So I union, and then bam, it removed that top section there. Do you see that? Right. So that's, and you can see that I didn't do an exactly perfect job there. Right? So what you want to do, maybe a better way to do this, I just thought about this, is to take the cylinder part, make his Can Collide not true, so that means he's kind of like see-through. Right? Take the negative part and make his Can Collide true, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to move the negative part so that he is touching the, ooh, is this part Can Collide on? Okay, so I'm going to turn this part's Can Collide on. Okay, so to recap, the cylinder is can collide off, so he's like a ghost. This block here's can collide is on, and this negated part's can collide is on. Okay, so now what I can do is highlight that negative part, smush him up against this brick part down here, right? And now I know for sure that there's no space between this part and this part, right? And these are my two can collide on, so these guys are actually solid objects. The cylinder's can collide is off, so he's a ghost, right? So it lets me put this negative part inside of the cylinder part. So anyways, now there's no space, and we won't get that little bit of cylinder on the top. And we'll do the same thing. I'll click on negative part, I'll click on the cylinder part, have them both highlighted here in the Explorer, and then I'm going to hit Union, and then bam. So you can see here it's nice and clean, right? There's no parts of the cylinder that we can see, and we got the job done, right? And you can do the same thing to get rid of this part here. And so using the weld to stick parts together, and then using the negate to remove parts of a part, will get you well on your way to building different objects in Roblox. Of course, you also might want to use the union tool if you want to create a single object, right, with the same material. So that's always available. But yeah, so that's how you use the negate part to remove little edges that you don't want in your model. And I guess one last thing that I can say here is, let's say that all these parts are going to be a sword, right? So what you want to do once you create everything is you can highlight the union, the different parts of this model, right? We don't want to include the base plate, but we want to include all these parts that we created and stuck together. And you want to right click and you want to say group. Okay, so we group them all together, and now they're all inside of this little model. And then we can call this like sword or something like that, right? And now if you want to adjust any parts, you open up the sword folder, and then you can go to any of these parts and adjust them. But now that they're in the sword folder, they're easier to move around. Like if you want to move it over to server replicated storage or server storage, you just grab it and then you move it over, right? So it just makes an object easier to manipulate, and organizationally it's cleaner in your Explorer. So that's pretty much all there is to building.